What is Dragonfruit? So Dragonfruit is an app-based mental health platform that August, Cam, and I have co-founded, and it's designed for Asians. We connect users with a diverse network of culturally sensitive and multilingual Asian coaches from all around the world. So it makes it easy to find someone who truly understands your background and lived experiences. So users can schedule sessions across time zones, take sessions via text or video calls. They can choose the kind of support they want in the language that they're most comfortable with. And beyond one-on-one support, Dragonfruit also offers an inclusive online forum where users can share stories anonymously with others. It's all about making mental health support accessible, relatable, and empowering while celebrating the rich diversity of the Asian identity. And one last thing is that all new users will receive a complimentary 1-hour session. It's our way of helping users take that step with no pressure and full support. So now I'd like to pass the time over to Wee Ling. She's a coach here at Dragonfruit. So let's give a warm welcome to her.
Hey, thanks, Yasmin. And hi, welcome everyone. And yeah, I'm not quite sure where everyone is, but I know at least, within the founder team as well as myself, we are in US West Coast for myself in Seattle and probably East Coast and Canada and Singapore. And I'm quite sure many of you are in different parts of the world as well. So welcome. And and just one thing that I would probably want to start off with is just a little quick story about myself. So last month I was back home in Singapore visiting my family. And one of the things that happens, once again, really speak to me as in, why was I like that? Right. And so one morning I woke up, I have two muffins at home, right? And I'm like, hey, mom, do you want to have, one of these muffins? Guess what was her response? She was like, well, you have two muffins. Do you want to give two of them to your brothers? I'm like, okay, if I have two muffins, I give two of them to my brothers. How about me? What about me? Right. So I think this is just a very candid way of introducing how mental health really comes to me. It started all the way, back when I was a little, where, the intention of my mom was not to harm me, but my intention of my mom to love my brothers more than me has shaped me for the many years in my life. Right. So with that little introduction, I just want to welcome everybody again. And I know the leadership team today has presented some really interesting and meaningful contents for you. And I hope that will be very important for you to take away today. And as for myself, for my personal story, mental health has been deeply personal, yet it is shaped by external forces, including our culture, family expectations, and the narratives that we have been told about ourselves. So I grew up in Singapore, and then I lived across Sweden, China, and USA for the past 20 years. And I have witnessed just how different cultures frame mental health and self-worth. When I was in Sweden, the independence that I see from folks being super direct. When I'm in China, you see all different kind of cultures where different people never really tell you what they want up front. And, it's a lot of indirect conversations. And when I came to US back 15 years ago, I literally was so ashamed of my English because English has never been my first language that when I have to present in front of a big crowd, I fumble, right? And there are all this fear and guilt and things that surface from within that I didn't know what is causing all this, right? But in 2017 is when I finally come to have a better understanding of mental health, when I realized how much my own identity has been shaped by childhood narratives and generation norms. So I grew up believing certain things about myself that, my worth was tied to performance, that prioritizing others made me good, and that my own needs were secondary. Just like the muffin story that I've shared, right? I come secondary to my brothers, right? I don't deserve the best thing that I enjoy. And these beliefs have deeply ingrained through family expectations and impacted my relationships, self-esteem, and even my sense of belonging. And I struggled with codependency, anxious attachment, insecurity, and people pleasing. And the fear of, rejection, disappointing others shaped the decisions I made, often at the expense of my own well-being. I often think ahead of time, hey, what is this person going to say before even they say anything? And I would then just try to adjust my words or behavior in anticipation is what is going to come ahead of me. Isn't that crazy? And but through my own journey, I found healing, and today I provide narrative story-based coaching to help others recognize and rewrite the stories that shape their life. And today, the co-founder team is going to share more specific topics, and I would just like to give you a bit of appetizers on some of these topics, and how each of these topics could have generated a kind of core beliefs within you that make you think that that is true, that is normal, and what people think about me is just who I am. So let's start off with the first one, which is generation differences and culture, right? Family expectations. We all have family. And how often do we hear suggestions from family that actually feels like obligations that you must do it, you have to do it? And we have been taught through young that, we must rescue, we must provide for the little ones, or fulfill responsibilities that were never even ours to begin with. Personally, I bore the burden of my family's financial debt for 25 years when I was in my 20s. That wasn't my responsibilities, but how did that happen? Right? And these expectations actually created silent pressures that impacted our mental health and make it difficult to set boundaries without feeling guilty. And often when my close ones tells me an issue, I feel like I have to offer a suggestion right away. Right? And some of these core beliefs that have been developed in myself include I need to perform. I need to fix your problem. I'm selfish for having my own needs and emotions, and it's just hard for me to express boundary without feeling guilty. So the question to you is, what role do you play in your family and your culture that may have shaped you? Secondly, let's talk a little bit about scarcity mindset, right? We are not just talking about scarcity in financials. Do we feel that we have enough money? But we often absorb a scarcity mindset around self-worth, right? We are taught that we need to, yeah, save our money, not indulge in unnecessary stuff, avoid even having excess, right? But the same mentality creeps into how we view ourselves, telling us that we cannot have the abundance in this life. I still believe her story when I had a roommate, after many years, I was going to indulge myself in a massage chair. And I was like, oh, finally, I can find a massage. I can buy a massage chair because at least you are in the house to share the massage chair with me. And I can't justify it myself to buy a massage chair for myself, right? And this core belief that, I have enough, but I don't have enough. I need more, but I should not have more. It's just often this conflicting thoughts in my head that I don't deserve good things. I'm not worthy of pampering myself, right? And beware that we are not talking about being wasteful or not being a good financial steward, right? But the question is, how often do we need approval from others in order to pamper ourselves for wellness and for well-being? Do we take care of ourselves? Do we feel bad or feel the need to justify when we are trying to show self-care to ourselves? Right, and that is super important. And I'm just glad that so many of you are online today, because this is the first step of being, spending time for yourself and spending time on self-care. So the third topic is purpose and belonging, right? Like Yasmin has mentioned, that is a big, big topic, right? Many of us spend a lifetime searching, seeking meaningful relationships, trying to find a way where we truly belong. We chase validations, thinking that, well, if I can just please one more person, I will be accepted, I will have a community, right? But what happens when our sense of purpose becomes tied to external approval rather than our own desires? Our sense of purpose is also a very, very fine line between loving others and loving ourselves. How often have we been disappointed by relationships where we have invested so much and yet they were not fruitful? And what happened? We end up blaming ourselves. It's all our fault, right? Could it be that we do not know our identity in those relationships and have been trying to be who the other person wants us to be? And some of these core beliefs again include I need to please you so I can be accepted. My fear of your anger or your rejections determines what I say or do. I agree to everything that you want. I give in to everything to feel safe. I put others' needs and desires before mine, and my purpose and identity are defined by what I do for you and not who I am. And lastly, how that relates to narratives and identity is that the most powerful influence on our mental health is the story that we believe about ourselves. Many of us have been told in one way or another that we are not enough. We have role models who constantly victimize themselves to normalize their behavior. And when we see that throughout our life, we think that it's normal, right? Victimization of ourselves is a normal response to something that doesn't seem right or doesn't feel comfortable for us. And when something happens, we blame others to protect ourselves as a survival mechanism. So, rejection, betrayal, shame, these experiences become narratives that shape how we see ourselves and how we interact into this world. And again, a few more core beliefs to leave with you here is that, I'm not aware of how I feel or what I want. I assume, right? A lot of times we'll say that, hey, I'm a very logical, I'm very analytical. But could it be that maybe we need to tap into that space in ourselves that, do I know how I feel? Right? I feel guilty for others' feeling. It's hard to admit mistakes because it's never my fault. I do not want to be blamed, and I do not think that I'm worthy of love. Right. So I've asked a few questions, that shape our lives, relationships, and self-worth. And I would just ask that, we take a moment to pause and examine them and really ask yourself, right, how has generation expectations shaped your mental health journey? What recurring patterns do you have that others have labeled as normal, wrong, or even selfish that cause you to live in shame or guilt? What core beliefs have you inherited from your family or mentors who have been a role model in your life? Are those beliefs serving you or holding you back? And how can you rewrite your own narratives to find greater belongings and meaning in life? And finally, just leaving you with a few key takeaway is that for a long time, I live under the weight of these beliefs, thinking that they were unchangeable. To survive, I tried to control all situations and myself, and truly there was no freedom, right? But I've come to learn that narratives can be rewritten and the healing starts with awareness. It does not happen overnight. Even today, after having over 8 years in this journey, I still fail. I still fall. I still come into the place where, oh my gosh, why did I say that? And however, when we question those stories that we have been told and choosing new ones that serve us, transformation will begin for many, many years to come. Right. So my hope today is that you walk away with not just the questions that we have asked, but the courage to challenge, to reshape, and to reclaim the narratives that define you. All right. So, and with that, I'll hand you back to the team for the rest of the time and have a good one. And keep your questions coming in the chat, and we'll look forward to address some of them later. Thank you. Jasmine, back to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wheeling. So that was a really personal story. She did tell me about what she was going to talk about, but I did not expect that to be so personal. And I think we see a lot of ourselves in what she has spoken about, that many of us can resonate with. So thank you for sharing that. Now, to break the ice a little bit, we're gonna go into a mental health trivia. It's a short one, so please go ahead and we're gonna display a QR code on the screen. So let me just toggle that just a sec. So yeah, scan the QR code. We are going to begin the mental health trivia. This is Mentimeter. So it's going to be about mental health questions as alongside Asian American type of questions, because we are at the tail end of Asian American Heritage Month, as well as Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's still the 31st, so we are still going to commemorate this special month of May with this mental health trivia. So how this game works is that it's going to be correct answer with a bunch of multiple choice questions, but at the same time, it will also be about how fast you respond. So fastest finger will get higher points. Yeah. All right, we're going to kick off. Right, what percentage of Asian Americans with a mental health condition seek help according to the Substance Abuse Mental Health Association? Thirty more seconds. All right, so the answer is 5%, which is a really low statistic for the number of the percentage of Asian Americans who actually seek support. So let's see the leaderboard. So yeah, we have 4 who answered correctly, some very familiar names. But let's go to the next question. Okay, which Asian American subgroup reports the highest level of psychological distress? Right. Let's see the results. So yes, Southeast Asians, according to a research from the 2020 Health, Ethnicity and Pandemic Study, Southeast Asians had a prevalence of 29%, followed by Koreans at 27% and South Asians at 22%. Looking at the leaderboard again, all right, so we see we have new winners for this question. Right, so seems like we have someone in the lead, but let's go to the next question. All right. Okay, let's proceed. So yes, which US legislation established May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month? more seconds. Ten more seconds. All right, so well, no one got this right, but it's actually the public law. The month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the US on May 7th, and it's to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th. All right, so I think everyone stays the same in terms of rankings. Let's go to the next question. All right, who founded the Asian American Psychological Association in 1972? Twenty more seconds. Yeah, okay, so it's Daryl Wing Su and Stanley Su. So the AAPA was established due to a lack of research and understanding of Asian American mental health. All right, moving on. All right, we have new people leading. So I think I will move on because it seems like there are only 8 people playing. So but that's fine. We'll move on to the next question. So that all right, what's the concept of somatization in Asian cultures referring to? So yeah, actually, sorry, I missed that slide, but it seems like a bunch of people got it right. Somatization is actually expression of somatization is actually shaped by cultural norms, stigmatizing mental health illness. So when you discuss emotional suffering openly, this can be seen as shameful or burdensome to others. So distress is usually more acceptably expressed through the body. Somatization actually makes it harder for healthcare providers to detect underlying mental health conditions like depression or anxiety. All right, moving on. So we only have 7 players. I'm just going to move forward with the answer after 7 players have completed answering. So what role does social media play in Asian American mental health? All right. So I think we're done. So this is actually a trick question. It's all of the above. Let's see who got this question right. Amazing, guys. I'm so impressed with you guys. Right. So yeah, social media can be a powerful tool for community healing and advocacy, but it can also exacerbate stress, comparison, and trauma if used without awareness or balance. All right, final question now. All right, we have 8 players again, I see. So what research indicates that there are differences in mental health service utilization between foreign-born and US-born Asian Americans, which is true. Right. So yeah, US-born Asian Americans have higher utilization rates. So the difference is due to several factors. So language barriers among foreign-born individuals, greater stigma in immigrant countries around mental illness, lower mental health literacy, less familiarity with Western mental health concepts or services, and acculturation differences. All right, let's see the final tally for the leadership board. And all right, it seems like BB, if I'm reading that right, is the winner for today. So it's, well, give yourself a pat on the back. This is amazing stuff. You seem to know your trivia really well. So congratulations. It's bragging rights you get today. All right, so we're moving back to the presentation. Just gonna share the right screen again, 1 second. Yeah, hope you had enjoyed that trivia and maybe even learned something new along the way. So we're going to discuss now cultural expectations and generational trends, something which Wheeling actually alluded to very briefly just now. And we are going to we're going to open this conversation. Actually, we wanted to play a video clip, but we are unable to navigate the sound, and it seems like even from my phone, no one was able to hear the sound. So we're gonna skip the video and go straight into having Cam discuss this for us. We will be sending, by the way, we'll be sending the recording, and if everyone needs, I'll work with Mari to get the links to all these videos out to you guys as well, so that you can actually have access to the videos. They're on YouTube anyway. All right, that was not supposed to be played. All right, so passing it on to Cam.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thought I had a break with the YouTube video, but guess not. But yeah, so what I want to talk about today is cultural expectations and general trends. So as a part of any conversation, I think it's important to know ourselves and the people around us. It helps to build the common ground and develop more meaningful conversations. Uh, so what we have to think about is our own motivation and those of others. And so by doing this, we can understand why we think the way we do and feel the things we feel. So let's just look at some of the milestones and what it means to you, your family members, so your parents and kids, and even the people around you. So people at church, your work, your community. Uh, I don't know them personally, so but I do know general trends and what these things can mean for them. So taking a look at academics, for example, for the older generation, they think education is more of a privilege. So thinking about what they had growing up, this was during post-war times. So at recovering from turbulence, meaning there's a very high cost of living, but at the same time there were a lot of opportunities. So working a minimum wage job, you can get by, paying a more compact house, but still able to survive. So education wasn't seen as a necessity, but a very valuable opportunity. Moving on to the next tranche, so middle-aged people like me, academic success is slowly becoming a requirement. So growing up, I knew a lot of people that were able to get decent jobs in construction, in other more labor-intensive jobs. However, I also saw what happened during their careers and life. So things like the boom and bust from the dot-com bubble, the Great Recession in '08 that caused a lot of jobs to change and uh, became different. So definitely needed to upskill a little bit more and be more competitive in a slowly changing marketplace. But then looking at the next generation, our kids, there's even greater pressure. There's a need to really become a master of a craft before they're even hired. So this means they had to get a diploma or do a lot of internships in order to even get their foot in the door. So because of that, there's a sense of daunting about the dynamic of all this change and things that are different. And it's harder for them to even get their foot in the door. So all these experiences shape how we think and how we do things. And by acknowledging all these different perspectives, we can open the door to a more understanding and productive conversation. But what doesn't change is how we react to conditions. One of our reactions is the scarcity mindset. What is a scarcity mindset? It's a way of thinking that focuses on what we're lacking rather than the opportunities that are available. It's the belief that resources, so time, money, opportunities are limited, and then we become fixated on survival and security. So this mindset can come from a lot of situations. So it can be from financial hardships, so any sort of crisis, the competition that comes from the school, the workplace, or even at home, or even social media, where we're fueled to compare ourselves to others and things that are happening. So what this results in is a focus on the shorter term wins. So getting a fancy finance job that you're overworking yourself at 80 hours and forgetting everything else. It's avoiding necessary healthcare like dental or eye care and psychological help just to save money. And all the savings going towards items that we may or may not need, neglecting some things but focusing on others. All this at the detriment of long-term growth and happiness. So by understanding more about yourself and this scarcity mindset, we can start to think of the rules that we're playing by and realize how we can act or do things differently. Which brings us to the next section about how we can react and the games we play.
We're going to take a moment to explore this framework that many of us can relate to. This is a framework that is shared by Chloe Shi. So Chloe is a content creator. She shares about her life experiences growing up as an Asian. And to touch on this concept briefly, it's the finite versus infinite game, where in the finite game, we're often chasing external validation, things like grades, salaries, promotions, something that Cam also spoke about previously, and it's about winning, reaching the next milestone, or keeping up with expectations, whether they're set by family, society, or ourselves. But an infinite game shifts our focus inward towards purpose. Questions like, how can I help others? Or what kind of life do I want to build? And that would begin to take shape and take the lead. It's less about proving and more about growing. So sometimes we need to pause and ask ourselves, well, why did we even start pursuing some of the things that make us unhappy? And is it possible to reconcile our deeper values with the milestones we're aiming for? So this shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset can be a game changer for our mental health. And it helps us feel grounded, less pressured, and more aligned with what actually matters to us. So we have another clip, but I'm going to play it, not because the sound is finally working, but because there are subtitles in there. So let's watch this clip, and you can just refer to the subtitles. I think she's made it quite prominent. This is Chloe Shi in talking about the Infinite Game.
Learn to play the infinite game. Lesson number 26. All my life, I obsessed over finite games. I sacrificed everything to win. Once I get promoted, become a product manager, get that FANG job offer, I'll finally be happy. If I
Oops, I'm sorry.
didn't, I felt like a failure. When I did win, I was happy for a moment, but then came the next game. In the finite game, the goal is to beat it, but in the infinite game, the goal is to keep playing. It's the shift from I have to get that A to I want to get good at this. There was a study with two groups. Group 1 was asked, how important is it for you to vote in this election? Group 2 was asked, how important is it for you to be a voter in this election? Those who identified as a voter were more likely to vote than those who simply said they would vote. So when I went from I want 100K subs to I want to help people chase their career and life dreams, I felt so much more invigorated in this journey. And I hope you've seen the results of that. Focusing on who you are versus what you do takes you further, makes you happier, and makes you more resilient when you don't win. What's your infinite game? This is 30 Lessons by 30. The next lesson's tomorrow, so follow for more.
Case in point, how do we build our identity with the application of Infinite Game? So identity isn't straightforward. We find ourselves navigating between our cultural heritage and our personal aspirations, trying to honor where we come from while also carving out who we want to be. So this is especially true for those of us who relate to the third culture experience, where you don't feel like you fully belong to your ancestral culture, but you also don't quite fit into the dominant culture around you. So it can feel like you're constantly switching, code switching between roles, or that you're floating somewhere in between. And that in between space, things like community, representation, and shared experiences, they play a huge role. So they shape how we see ourselves and how we come to define who we are, not just individually, but collectively as a community. But when we talk about belonging, what do we really mean? Many of us can carry stories and expectations from earlier generations, sometimes stories that don't fit our current reality. We can feel stuck in old narratives or pressured to meet definitions of success that don't align with our mental or emotional well-being. So that's where the idea of the infinite game comes in. And here to talk about it would be August on how to evolve the thinking for how we perceive belonging.
Thank you, Jasmine. So I think I relate to Chloe's video a lot because I'm 29 and it's really 30 before 30, right? 30 lessons before 30. And I particularly relate to this finite versus infinite game because I've played finite game for most of my life. I think I still do. And I think it's a mindset really, really impacts my quality of life. And infinite game is what, yeah, be my authentic self, and then find my purpose. So I also want to just share a story as an example, on top of what Chloe shared. So as an immigrant, my mom worked really hard, right? I was born and raised in China. My mom worked really hard to get enough money supporting me financially to come to the US to study. And as you may know, a lot of international students, um, one of the goal is just to stay in the US and work to at least make the money back because it's really hard to make that amount of money if I went back to China. At least for me, it's a very individual case. So when I graduated from college, it was a lot of pressure. When I was graduating senior year, a lot of pressure just to find a job in the US. And that was the only goal. I defined my whole life based on it. It's almost like if I didn't get this job, if I didn't get any job, then my life would be a failure. Life wouldn't go anywhere. And when I finally got the job offer, I remember the exact moment I texted my friend. I said, I thought I was supposed to feel so excited, feel so accomplished that I did this. But now I'm sitting in this hotel room paid by my future employer and going to this new hire, dinner thing, and I feel nothing. I feel so empty. I don't know what to do next. I don't know what my next finance game was, right? And as I go through this process over my 20s, I slowly start thinking about what's my purpose, what what really gets me to the next step, and keep thinking about um what is that what I really want to do. And that's also part of the reason why I'm working on Dragonfruit with Jasmine Cam, to find this purpose, the passion for my life, to help everyone, like just in my situation, pursue better mental resilience. So that's my story. But coming back to the evolution of belonging, looking at finite versus infinite game, what we're really looking at is really how we define our value, right? Is that based on an external benchmark from externally? Like, do we fit in a certain group, friend group type, trying to have, oh, that person has so many friends and I only have one, or maybe I don't even have anybody who I can call friends, and that makes me sad. To infinite game, like I appreciate the one friend or the one person who can talk to me about this one particular topic at this time. And instead of I want to be at a party of 100 people, seems so popular, but feel very empty at the end of the day. So really understanding who you are, your authentic self, your purpose, and what gives you that meaning in life. So I think we can go to next slide. Yeah. Okay. So here is a building new community narratives with infinite game. And we show 3 examples here, I think very important to everybody. One's career, the other's belonging, and the third is the mental health, right? So career is the biggest thing of our life, basically, because we work so hard until someday, maybe someday I'll retire. And I think as as I was growing up, everything was so about how much I was getting paid. Once I hit that 6 figure, that's a milestone or something. But life really didn't change, right? I'm still me, and I still didn't know what I wanted, regardless how much I made. And I'd still feel empty because there's always more money to be made. So redefining career success from the so-called performance or money, right, to presence, to are you doing what you care about? Are you working with people you care about, you like? And I've heard one saying about what is really burning out is working on things that you don't care about with people you don't like. And I hope nobody goes through that. But if that happens, I think that's a time to really reevaluate whether that salary or the performance matter that much to you, and whether that's time to move on, to find a bigger purpose, to align your purpose. And second, reimagine belonging, right? From position to participation. It is like, I think the example I gave, do you just want to be around people to show that, oh, in that moment, you have so many people around you? Or do you really feel belonged and participating in that discussion, in the conversation, to feel that you belong in a community, that you're part of them? And to me, the community, the belonging is jujitsu. And whenever I go there with my jujitsu friends, I feel I belong. Whereas at work, I don't feel so much. And then the third, normalize mental health as ongoing, right? From affliction to growth. Thinking about the finite game is, okay, if you're happy, then that seems like that's the end of a mental health struggle, right? But what we usually misinterpret that mental health is an ongoing process. The sadness will always come back to us, and anxiety might come back to us. It might go away, but it might come back. And that's a process for us to manage. And in infinite games, in the long term, we can manage our mental health to be more resilient, to know when we are feeling that anxiety or possibly depression, and work on that, to have actions, have triggers to make us feel a bit more positive and hopeful at the end of the day, throughout that life. So here are just like 3 examples in our life in terms of how to apply this finite versus infinite game.
Yeah, I think whatever August has shared is very relevant in terms of how you shift your mindset towards finding the next step in your journey, whether it's through careers or whether it's thinking about your next phase of life. And as we close this discussion, we'd like to share a quote from Dr. Jenny Wang. So Dr. Jenny Wang is a psychologist, keynote speaker. She's also the author of a book called Permission to Come Home. If you haven't come across her work yet, we highly recommend checking it out, especially her book, which speaks so deeply to the Asian American experience. And this particular quote really resonates with everything we've been talking about today, such as the disconnect we may feel with older generations that Cam was talking about, and the ongoing journey of becoming who we truly are. So I'm just going to read this quote. Sometimes as a child of immigrants, we may find ourselves in places of suffering that result from holding ourselves to such rigid and oppressive internalized frameworks that we rarely question throughout our entire lives. These frameworks drive deeply into our fears of shame and bringing shame upon those we love most. And yet shame is reinforced through silence and maintained by making us believe that we are the only ones struggling to stand beneath the weight of expectations, patriarchal systems, the hopes and dreams of our parents' sacrifices, and much, much more. Our generation must identify the frameworks that serve us and release those that don't. So this is just a fascinating quote because it reminds us that healing, growth, and identity formation aren't acts of rejection. They're acts of expansion, and they're deeply connected to where we come from. And this beautifully captures the heart of why Dragonfruit exists. This is truly the foundation upon which we were built. We believe that healing is not only personal, but powerful when shared. And our mission is to spread healing and to empower others to pay it forward, whether it's through coaching in the app or through community conversations like today's webinar. We want to offer something that people can take with them and pass along to others. Because at the end of the day, we believe that healed people will heal people. So we have come to the end of the presentation and we are opening the floor to questions. Leave your questions in the chat and I believe that's the way to do it. So we will see what questions come up and we'll try to address them as much as we can. Okay, so we have a question here asking what kind of resources do you have for Asian adoptees? So Asian adoptees is admittedly a very new, a very niche area of scope for us. We have case managed people, social workers or coaches on the app who has worked with, who have managed cases that involve Asian adoptees before, and definitely they would be primed to be able to advise on what is the on whatever particular circumstances adoptees are facing, depending on a very confidential discussion with them. But definitely this is something that we also like to address in the near future. We'd like to be very open to anybody who comes along our way, for sure. Stigmas. So we have a question: how can you help break down the stigmas in getting help for mental health? I think a lot of these stigmas are really ever present because of where we were brought up and the beliefs that have shaped who we are. But I think therein lies a kind of personal determination to overcome the stigma. When you are feeling really low, as I have experienced before, and you don't really need to kind of disclose to people whether you are seeking help or not, but do it just for yourself. You do it because you want to get better, because you want those around you to also be protected. But take that step. Taking that step is actually the biggest leap towards recovery, towards getting better, and talking to people. Nobody in the world is best to provide you that support you need as much as the ones around you, or the people that truly care about you. A person, whether it's a therapist or a coach, is there to provide that support for an hour. But if you can surround yourself with friends, with people who share the same wavelength as you, and who are able to give you that external pair of lens or an external validation that you need, or even to just be a listening ear for you, I think that in itself is integrating into the mental health support you need without having to form a stigmatized view around it. But of course, if you are really in need of somebody who is more professional, that you can always reach out to a coach or book a therapist from someone from a resource that in whichever state you live in. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be something that is shameful for you. It's something that many people do these days, even without them having gone through depression. It's about building that resilience, building structure or a mindset on how to move forward. So as we get older, we also face a lot of different circumstances that we're not used to. We move into a new house, we get married, our lives change. The lives that we knew before it's not the same anymore. So constantly it's playing that infinite game, right? Having that mindset that you're always going to that this is going to be an ongoing thing. It's something that you are going to have to manage actively. It's not something that there would be someone to handhold you, but it's something that you're going to have to discover yourself, and it's about learning about yourself on an ongoing basis as well. So therein, I don't know if I've adequately addressed that question, but breaking down the stigma is about looking inward as opposed to looking outward, or looking from an outsider's point of view. It's best to see how you can actually better manage the emotions that you're facing, and so that you can in turn be support to others.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. Oh yeah, I really appreciate this quote from Cho too. Healing is like dressing a wound. Gotta first spare the pain for the wound to have a chance to heal. So I like that quote. But I also want to add to Jasmine what he just shared about surrounding yourself with people who support your mental health journey, and know that it's very important to create that environment for yourself to break down and to sustain environment, to keep pursuing mental health. Because for me, a lot of friends around me are very supportive for when I struggled with some personal issues. Really one of the biggest wound and pain that I had in my life, where I currently have, is really my mom. she was the only one among everybody around me who said, people are gonna laugh at you if you share this with people. Like, those people who know about what you struggle with, they're laughing at you right now. Why would you tell this to anybody? And and it was so painful to hear that. But I made a very conscious decision to now listen to it. Like I heard it, but I'm not going to let that change how I do this because I know better with all the support and resources around me. So I decided to surround myself with my friends with resources who can make me feel more resilient and better. And it's painful to stay away from someone who's so close to me like my mom. But that's one of the decisions I had to make to go through that. Um, so obviously it's a very personal journey, but I think it's one way to break down the stigma is to not buy into that. And the second is, I think, how we framed dragon fruit as we thought about breaking down stigma is to make it more about like the analogy I made around gym versus hospital, right? We go to hospital when we are sick with illness, but we go to a gym when we are healthy and we want to be healthier. We want to be resilient. We want to be preventative, right? And I think that's what we're trying to achieve with mental health is we pursue mental health doesn't mean we're mentally ill. It just means we recognize the need for it.
Right. Great. Let's see if there are any more sessions. Yes, so in response to topics on Asian adoptees, we are getting resources together and we will be sharing about this in the third of the learning series. So this is the first, and we will have one potentially in sometime in August, and then there'll be another one towards the end of the year. I think that would be in accordance with the adoptee month, I think. Did I miss anything? If anyone saw any questions that we haven't addressed? No. So while keep your questions coming, if any, and I'm just going to toggle now to the word cloud review. Just a second. So yes, this is what we asked at the start of this webinar. What comes to your mind when you think about mental health for Asian Americans? I think we've got a collection of words. So I think the only one that had more than one response is the word racism. And I think that's a very, very relatable topic, right? Racism, microaggression. I think there is a lot going on these days with, I think, especially with deportation risks, things that are happening politically, socially as well. And it is definitely something that affects our livelihoods. So it should be talked about, it should be discussed, but and as we have also spoken about before, it's about sharing that collective experiences, finding the right tribe for yourselves, having that support system, surrounding yourself with people who are able to share resources, who are able to support you in that way. And that is kind of the best support network that will help you navigate through this. It's a systemic issue, racism, discrimination, a systemic issue that cannot be changed. I mean, we can get angry about it, and of course, gradually as society evolves and people become more aware and educated, the instances of racism would get more talked about. But as it stands individually, it's not something that can be changed overnight. And to just be surround yourself with the people with the right resources and to support one another where necessary, that is the best way that you can build your community and build your sense of belonging to circumvent anything that comes your way with regards to this. We see, yes, stigmatized, that's something that a lot of people face. Shame, I think that's a very similar word. Not talked about often. And yes, that's what we're trying to address, right? The stigmatization of mental health. We're trying to talk about it. We're trying to push for conversations surrounding mental health, and that is and as long as we communicate and share spiritual messages, useful, valuable messages that add value to people's lives, that is the mission. It is complex, mental health. There are many feeding issues within that broad umbrella of a topic itself. There's microaggression, there is generational trauma, there is the usual depression, anxiety, and there are so many moving parts that we would have to kind of take a lot to really uncover and unpack all of them. Great, thanks for sharing all of these words, guys. And it's really heartwarming to know that people share a common voice and they're encouraged to want to speak about mental health more often. Let me just check back on the chat. I think that's it. So yes, I'm gonna flick back to the slide presentation, because we have a final survey that we'd like everyone to contribute. To give us feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts around how we have performed today. Yep, some web links to share. First QR code would be the survey. It would lead to the Google Forms. So give your honest feedback. How can we improve? We'd love to hear from you. Second one would be the Dragonfruit main website. Take a look at some of the resources we have there. We write blog posts and post them as blog articles from time to time. Get connected with us on Instagram and all of our socials. And the last two would be the respective App Store and Google Play for the app itself. And even if you sign up on the app, you can actually connect with either one of us. We are there. We are on standby through the admin. You can post questions and you can talk to us over there, and it's all confidential. Everything is encrypted. Or you can post on the wider forum, and it's all anonymous. So seek wisdom of the crowd. Everyone's there to support one another. That's it. Any closing remarks from anyone? I think this is all we have today.
Thank you so very much for all of your time.
Of course.
If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, or also AMASIAN. We can always connect you, and we will send out the recording and all the other links. We can send those all out to the participants.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I will connect with AMASIAN to share the survey link if you guys would like to still participate in the survey. Send us your feedback if any.
Sure, we would love to do that.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today, and you have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.